What's up, y'all? Today we are breaking down a sports poster that I made using AI and sort of a 3D look. So this is the first thing I used AI for, and you could find a photo like this somewhere, but with AI it makes it super easy. You just type in exactly what you want. With a little bit of trial and error, you can get just about exactly what you want without having to search through a bunch of photos that most of them are nowhere near what you want, and then a few will be semi good, and then maybe you'll find one that you actually want to use. Literally just make whatever you want and then use it in your graphics. Don't let it be a crutch that you lean on, but use it along with your graphic design skills to make something dope. So here what we did is we have our background crystal photo, and then we use a hue saturation layer, and I just switched this down to the green and then just kind of brushed in a little bit so that the crystals would be blue and green. That's a fix right there because the AI wouldn't make. I wanted it to be blue and green crystals, and you can kind of see that they are semi that way, and then there's blue green crystals, but I wanted some blue, some green, and I couldn't figure out quickly how to make it do that. So I did part of it in the AI and part of it in Photoshop. That's the kind of thing that I'm talking about. So then we have our actual legitimate picture. This is a disc golf graphic. So this is a photo on the course where this tournament was played. And then I put a curves layer on it to give it more contrast. So you can see how we have our actual real life stuff, and then we have our AI generated stuff. But then we can use AI in Photoshop and then putting a generative fill on it so that AI creates a sort of in-between area of where it blends the two together. Because I could maybe try to do something like that, but AI will do it a lot quicker, and with a few tries, it can look pretty good. So then we put a curves layer over top of everything, and that really brings it together. It makes everything really contrasty. I mean, this just looks cool already. So then what I'm gonna do to that, if you hit Control Alt Shift E, you can stamp the layer or everything underneath and then create a layer of that. And then I put a iris blur on it. And so that makes it look sort of like how your eye would see this, but the middle of it is not blurred and then the outside edges are blurred. And then over top of that, because I couldn't decide which one I wanted to do, I did the same layer with a radial blur that's on zoom. So that's up here under filter, radial blur, and then just do the zoom blur. And then the other one is blur gallery. I used iris blur. I like to do tilt shift blur sometimes too. Then we put the logo in the background, and that looks pretty boring, so I added a gradient onto it to make it pop a little more. And then we have our photos, and you want to kind of edit the photos, I guess, with your own style, but you don't want to overdo it. And basically I just try to get as much detail out of them as possible. And usually with the girls, you want to soften up the skin texture, and with the guys, I make it usually pretty contrasty. This one you can't really tell. They about look the same. She's just a lot more tan than he is. So then I put a motion blur on them, and all I did here is put it to 6, and it's on a 0 angle, so it's going from side to side. That's the same way on both. And then I just brushed in around the edges so that the edges of them kind of have some movement and some blur, but you don't lose the details in their face and stuff like that. So it kind of blends them into the background and shows a little bit of the motion that you wouldn't get. And then you want to match the two cutouts. And so really all I thought I needed to do was bump up the highlights for her to kind of match their lighting. And I think that got it where I wanted it. And then once you have them matched, you can put them in a group and blend them to the background, or match them to the background. So then I used a curves layer, and if you make sure this square is selected, so you just click it and then click it again. Usually it'll click, usually it selects the layer mask first. So you want to click it again so it moves over to here. Then do Alt Auto. Click on Auto up here while holding Alt, and you can select the light and dark areas and match it to the background. Then I just use an exposure layer to brighten them up from that, and then a curves layer to bring down just the darkest areas. So a lot of like matching and lighting touch-ups. Then we have our text up top, which is just a regular white text. And then I put a bevel on it to kind of match this look of the logo. Then we just used a bunch of like lens flares, same thing on the top and bottom. Those are both set to screen. And then we have 3 more lens flares. And with crystals, you can kind of put them anywhere and they look like they're supposed to be there. I'm like a lot of times not great at using lens flares, but these just worked out and looked good. So I decided to add those in. Makes it pop up there a little more. And then I use a camera raw filter and just kind of tweaked all the settings again. Sometimes I do that, sometimes I don't. It's not a necessity. And then we did our apply image technique, and I just brushed in some areas that I wanted to really pop with the lighting. And then we used a color lookup, which really just kind of saturated the whole graphic a little more, but not too much. And then added the text back in over top just to make sure that's nice and crispy looking. So this is how I would advise using AI. Just use it as like a tool to make your graphics like that much better. And any processes that you can knock out with it that are quicker, use it for those sort of things. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.